I wish that I could say I was some genius who went in a lab and created something that extended the life of test subjects by 90%, that made a great face serum. That no, I'm just a guy who's been manufacturing this molecule since 1991. They thought it was toxic and they put it in the study. It turned out to extend the life of the test subjects. And then we're just kind of trying to be a great shepherd to this research and this molecule.
Hello, welcome to the Myers Detox podcast. I'm Dr. Wendy Myers, and on this show, we talk about everything related to detoxification, how to detox your body, the problems, the health issues caused by various toxins and heavy metals in our environment. And we also touch on anti-aging and bioenergetics and other things that I'm passionate about, kind of more advanced topics in health here on this show. And today we have Chris Burres on the show, and he's a researcher on the carbon-60 molecule, also called C60, also called ESS60, which is what he calls the molecule in his product. So he owns MyVitalC.com. And today he's going to talk to us all about what the carbon-60 molecule is, how it's shown to extend lifespan 90%, in a rat study, and how there was also no tumor growth in these rats, which is also fairly common. And he talks about how C60 is a powerful antioxidant in the mitochondria, because the mitochondria produce a lot of byproducts, a lot of reactive oxygen species that our body then has to deal with. So it kind of clears all that fuel byproduct. And it also acts as a really powerful antioxidant, 125 times more potent than vitamin C. Also, a lot of benefits reported, including increased energy, better mental focus, better sleep, skin improvements, also has liver protective effects. And it's one of the few detox molecules that actually crosses the intestinal lining and gets into the bloodstream to work its magic there as well. And Chris's company, MyVitalC, it offers C60 supplements in olive oil, organic olive oil, which is great, avocado oil, and MCT forms. He also has capsules and facial serums as well. Anyone listening, you can check out Chris's website and get a very special offer for my listeners to get $15 off your first order at myvitalc.com/Wendy. So go check that out. Our guest today, Chris, he is a published author, host of Uncovering the Secrets of Longevity Health Summit. He's a podcast host and a patent holder with a surprising twist. Chris Burres is not just a visionary scientist, but also a master of comedy improv. He's really funny on the show today. And Chris Burres is the founder and chief scientist at MyVitalC, where he manufactures a Nobel Prize-winning molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result in history, a full 90% extension of life. And he is the intersection where science meets laughter, and his life's mission to help other people live longer, healthier, happier, pain-free lives with science. Chris, thank you so much for joining the show.
Wendy, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share like cool science, and I think you've been having a good experience. So all of this is going to be wonderful.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking today about C60. So this is your product right here. It's MyVitalC. And so why don't you tell us what C60 is exactly and why it's so important for detox and all the benefits, and we're going to dive into all that.
Yeah, so I'm holding up a model of a molecule, and if you're listening, you don't have to try and find your camera or phone or whatever to figure out what it looks like. Just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So there's 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a soccer ball, in the shape of a sphere. The molecule was discovered in 1985 here in Houston, where we're based, at Rice University. And the three scientists who discovered it actually won the Nobel Prize for the discovery. And the reason they won the Nobel Prize is because the molecule is amazing. It performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is often where people are like, wait, I thought we were talking about a health supplement. You just said ink, batteries, tires, photocells. I'm getting a little nervous. Well, you're going to get a little more nervous because they actually thought the molecule would be toxic. one of the shapes on the exterior of this soccer ball cage is reminiscent of benzene. Now, benzene is ubiquitous in our society, a necessary component of modern society. If you just glance around you and imagine everything that is plastic gone, because the benzene ring is the foundation of plastics. It's the foundation of a lot of medicines, detergents. Again, we don't have modern society without it. But benzene on its own is known to be toxic and known to be a carcinogen. So because that shape is on this exterior of this soccer ball shaped molecule, they thought it would be toxic. They also thought, because of all the brilliant performance that it has, again, in inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, that man would be working with it on a regular basis. And whenever that happens, you want to figure out, okay, what is the toxicity level? How toxic is it? So they put it in a toxicity study. That study came out and it was published in 2012. In that study, they gave test subjects. In this case, it was Wistar rats, water, olive oil, and then olive oil with as much of this molecule. Now, you mentioned C60. We really think of like C60 for industrial applications, and then ESS60 for actual consumption. So the third group was given olive oil with ESS60. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to lived 90% longer than the control group. So
Wow.
that's yeah, it's wow. It's the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history. And it is peer-reviewed, published research. I'm very proud to say my lab provided the material, and my lab is mentioned in that original peer-reviewed, published research. And you can imagine that research kind of changed my destiny, like up until that paper was released. My business partner and I were happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists, if there is such a thing. We were them. and we were delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials, specifically like industrial grade C60, to research institutions around the world. Then that paper came out, and then like that's why I'm here talking to you.
Okay, great. Yeah. And why don't you talk to us about the detox benefits? Because I've been taking this for the past few months and I love it. I mean, when I'm doing my infrared sauna, when I do my ionic detox foot baths, I take a big old swig of this. I do a little shot and, and I feel like it's going to be absorbing or catching all of the different toxins and taking it out of my body. So talk about its detox benefits.
Yeah, I think we'll get into another method of action, really its impact on the mitochondria. But we can talk about detox from the perspective of, so we've been in this industry again since 1991. We're based in Houston. So I actually went to the University of Houston, and through some professors there, we did some studies on its ability to be an absorber of the things that actually are toxins to humans. So this is typically like solvents, hydrocarbons, those types of things. And when we gave it, I think this professor, can't remember his last name, starts with an A, but we gave the material to him. He pre-prepared the material because it was actually kind of dirty when we got it to him, and it performed as well or better than, like it always does, than activated charcoal. So we all know that activated charcoal is a great detoxification agent. Now, activated charcoal actually only works inside your intestinal system, right? It's too big to get through the gut barrier and into your bloodstream. Whereas this molecule, at least once you break it down, and I'll talk about that in a second, can actually get into your bloodstream, and it has the ability to do potentially some detoxification there, although we need more studies on that. And when I say break it down, so it's really interesting. If you were to hold a small pile of the powder of this industrial C60 powder, or even the as processed ESS60 powder, it's really in a crystalline form, right? Like, so you have sugar crystals, or you would have salt crystals in your hand. You're not individual molecules. And you can consume that, it's safe to consume, assuming it's the ESS60 and not kind of solvent-laden carbon-60, industrial carbon-60, then you can consume it. The problem is it's not water-soluble. So you would just excrete it out, and it really has extremely low bioavailability. Now, when you put it into, and we actually sell it in 3 oils, an olive oil or an avocado oil or an MCT oil, it actually breaks down and dissolves, so scientifically dissolves into the monomolecular state. So you have each each of these individual soccer ball shaped molecules, ESS60 molecules, is floating around in that olive oil is our typical recommended product on its own. So now you can imagine the surface area changes extremely, and now it's bioavailable. And yeah, we know, and this will kind of get into the next theory, we know that this molecule gets into the mitochondria, and that's from peer-reviewed published research.
Okay, fantastic. And that's where a lot of toxins, really disrupt the mitochondrial energy production. I mean, just all manner of toxins disrupt mitochondrial energy production because they're so delicate. And what I love about this, the MyVitalC, is you have it in organic olive oil. And olive oil, as we know, has so many different health benefits and antioxidants in it. So I love taking this because I'm getting a shot of olive oil also, which I don't always get in my diet every day, but I think it's important to take it every day also.
Yeah, I mean, I love what Dr. Gundry has to say about olive oil, which is the purpose of food is to get more olive oil into your mouth. And he
I
has
saw that, so cute.
Right? He has a high quality olive oil on the market. And if you go back to the original study, remember there were 3 groups. One group was given water, one olive oil, and one olive oil with ESS60. The group given olive oil actually in that particular study lived 30% longer. So I'm in total agreement with Dr. Gundry. You get more olive oil into your mouth. Like, you should be consuming more. And we do use, you probably get that kind of peppery flavor at the back of your throat. In fact, I'll do a shot. I'll do a
Yeah, I
shot
will
right now.
too. I do a shot every day anyway, so
I've
so
got
about
my
how
little
much about it, I just do actually just do a swig
a
of
little
it, but
swig.
how much should people take though? I'm not super picky about the measurements, but I can't OD on it, so I don't
You
worry about it.
cannot. Yeah. We can talk about that in a second. The typical serving is about 1 teaspoon
Mm-hmm.
or 5 mils, right? So this is 5 mils in my little measuring cup.
I mean, for me, it tastes really good. I love the taste of olive oil. I love that
Yeah.
peppery kind of flavor.
So what's interesting, that's one of our, quote unquote complaints about our product. Some people will call and say, "Oh, it's leaving a peppery flavor at the back of my throat. Is it rancid?" And we're like, "No, it's the opposite of rancid. A high quality extra virgin olive oil will leave that peppery flavor. In fact, you've probably been to an Italian restaurant where they'll put some olive oil on a plate and then crack pepper in it. What they're trying to do is give that higher quality olive oil experience, that pepperiness, if that's a word, from a less expensive olive oil. So,
Yeah.
so
Too many
yeah,
people, they're buying the fake olive oils at the grocery store, unfortunately. So
no,
they don't know what it's supposed to taste like.
yeah, it's supposed to leave a peppery flavor, and the higher the quality, the more extra virgin olive oil it is, the more pepperiness you'll leave there. So olive oil is amazing, and then you throw in the ESS60 molecule, and you just got this. You have this 1-2 punch. There's an ad hoc study on the web showing it to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C as an antioxidant. And then really peer-reviewed published research 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So it's an amazing antioxidant, and the fact that it can function as an antioxidant inside the mitochondria really sets it apart. I could talk about that more if you wanted to kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, because it's so important for detoxification. You're taking lots of antioxidants to fight the free radicals created by toxins and your body endogenously, and to take binders, things that will mop up toxins like a sponge, especially if you're doing detox protocols like, the infrared saunas and the foot baths and, enemas or whatever you're doing to do detox. And so is there any research that you can tell us about that shows like what toxins are captured by the C60 molecules to facilitate removal from the body?
Yeah, I think probably the one that's most important is actually reactive oxygen species. Like that's the key, and that's not even necessarily an external toxin. It's something that happens internally. So to kind of preface this kind of discussion about mitochondria, we actually have testimonials from head to toe, right? And so I'm going to give some testimonials. Let me give you an FDA disclaimer. The FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. In general, when I'm sharing testimonials, there's 2 things that are true. Just assume it won't happen to you, because we have to be really careful. Dig into the research and decide if you want to try it. The other is I only share testimonials that I have like it's really important for me to like have the email thread, have the phone number of the person to know them. So those are the only testimonials that I'll share. So we have head to toe testimonials, you know, from the hair, from the head, we've got hair growing faster, growing in where it hasn't grown in a while, and growing back original colors. So those are some of the, to kind of give you the landscape. On toe, the one that I usually reference is there was we've worked with an influencer who, when he was 5 years old, he got bit by a crab on his big toe and it split his toenail. And he actually went on to become a Navy SEAL. And then when we started working with him, that toenail was still split all the way until 65, when it finally healed together after he started taking our product. So we literally have head to toe testimonials, and it's kind of my kind of chief scientist responsibility to try and figure out like what's the mechanism of action? Well, like what is going on here? And it was when I came across a paper that showed that this ESS60 molecule is in the mitochondria. And you put that together with, even back in the 90s when it was discovered, this understanding that this molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of the cage. So now you're thinking, well, that's like a free radical sponge. If you had a room full of mitochondrial experts and you said, hey, would it be good to have a free radical sponge in the mitochondria while it's going through its business of making the energy for your cells, they would all raise their hand. They're like, this is probably a really good idea. And so the way that we believe this works, again, mitochondria, powerhouse of every cell in your body has between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria. Except for blood cells, they don't have any. And then neurons and your brain cells have 2 million mitochondria, because we spend so much energy on kind of that neuro process and also our brain function. So that mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. One of the byproducts, like every power source tends to have negative byproducts, right? You've got your car going down the road with exhaust, right? And they actually use a catalytic converter to mitigate that exhaust. You've got a power plant with this big smokestack, and they have smokestack scrubbers to kind of manage the negative byproducts. In the mitochondria, the negative byproduct is an ROS, a reactive oxygen species. And inside the mitochondria, it's got really 2 main antioxidants that are important for managing those reactive oxygen species, and that's glutathione and melatonin. Now, we all know, whether it's the stress of life, whether it's a hard workout, whether it's, you know, toxins, that our mitochondria can get overwhelmed. And what happens when it effectively runs out of glutathione or melatonin is that those free radicals, those reactive oxygen species, run around and start doing damage. Now, when that happens, we believe this steps in and holds on to those reactive oxygen species until that mitochondria can replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, and then they can manage those reactive oxygen species. I've got a kind of fun analogy, right? We're close to New Orleans, about 6 hours away. So it's Mardi Gras. And at the end of Mardi Gras, you've got a bunch of drunk reactive oxygen species running around Bourbon Street, breaking everything, painting stuff, whatever. And you've got the police, the glutathione and the melatonin, who come in and handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they're overwhelmed? Well, they throw those reactive oxygen species in a paddy wagon, right? So the ESS60 molecule holds on to those until the New Orleans police can replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, and then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. That makes it, well, one, we know it to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C, and to act in a way that vitamin C doesn't. And what's really key about this, and really was this an influencer named Chris Gethin who kind of put this on my radar. He's a bodybuilder, right? And bodybuilders are entirely dependent on hormetic response, right? They overtax their muscles, and then the hormetic response is that they build more muscle, right? Like that's, if they don't have the hormetic response, they don't get bigger muscles. They are not a bodybuilder anymore, right? If you take too much of antioxidants, you can dampen that hormetic response. And he loves our product because it doesn't dampen the hormetic response, but it does serve the purpose of the antioxidant. Again, holding on to those reactive oxygen species, making sure they're not doing any damage, but then allowing the body to go through its natural processes, which makes it incredibly unique. And then now we're talking about, well, why do we have head to toe testimonials? Well, if you're positively impacting or reducing the negative impact of your powerhouse, then you're going to positively impact every aspect of your well-being.
So for anyone listening that really wants to detox their body, go to heavymetalsquiz.com. I created a quiz for you. It only takes a couple of seconds. Based on some lifestyle questions, you can get your toxicity score and get a free video series that answers all of your frequently asked questions about how to detox your body. Check it out, heavymetalsquiz.com. Yeah, because when your mitochondria are burning oxygen, which is their main fuel source, it's very dirty. It's a dirty fuel, the byproduct, and our body has to deal with all that. And so talk to us about some other benefits that people are having. Like I've heard of people they have more energy, they have relief of brain fog, and what are some other things that people reported to you?
Yeah, our most consistent testimonial, and this actually creates like kind of a marketing problem, right? You own a business, marketing is a very important part of a business. Our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And I think if you just grabbed a random person off the street and said like, hey, here's this thing, it's going to give you focus and energy during the day, and then it's going to help you sleep that night, they would just go, no, like it's not going to. Like caffeine will give me focus and energy, right? Like a boost during the day, but doesn't positively impact sleep at night. And then the reverse is true. Like if you were to go to Ambien, by the way, don't, like I can talk about that a little bit. I'll do a compare and contrast with Ambien. But you wouldn't take Ambien in the morning to try and get focused. Like people separate these things into two distinct areas. And again, if you're positively impacting the mitochondria, then yeah, focus and energy. You got 2 million mitochondria in each of your brain cells. Like that's a really important aspect of your brain function. And then sleeping, like mitochondrial cleanup, this is at least my theory, mitochondrial cleanup is an important aspect of deep sleep, an important aspect of the healing and restorative sleep that you get. I like to draw the interesting kind of contrast. There's a book by Dr. Matthew Walker, I don't know if you've read it, called Why We Sleep. It is the scariest book about sleep you will ever read. I kind of call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books.
I've heard him on podcast.
Yeah. He's an amazing speaker. Like just I aspire to try and be as good a speaker as he is someday. One of the things that he talks about is the $2 billion. Well, by the way, the reason I call it Freddy Krueger, unlike the character from Nightmare on Elm Street, where he scares you out of your sleep, reading this book will scare you into your sleep.
Yeah.
In fact, in his preface, he's like, if you were to fall asleep while reading my book, I would take that as a positive, because that's the whole purpose of this book, is to convince you need to be sleeping properly. He talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry. These are prescription drugs, and you take them right before you go to sleep. He says that they're depressant. Well, they are depressants, and they cause you to feel like you don't need more sleep when you get up, which would be really refreshing, right? If you had 10 days of waking up and going, I just need more sleep, and then finally you wake up one day and you're like, I don't feel like I need more sleep, that would feel really refreshing. The problem is because it's a depressant, it interrupts the REM and NREM sleep cycles, so you don't get the healing and restorative sleep, right? So I certainly wish I had gotten my dad off of Ambien much before he passed. That's lessons learned. And so I contrast that, because you take Ambien right before you go to sleep. You take a lot of things right before you go to sleep. Our product you take in the morning. Again, focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And I'll share, so my own testimony is I have to embarrassingly admit that I used to take 2 naps before noon on Saturdays and Sundays. And what that would look like, my wife and I have twins, boy-girl twins, and I would go downstairs, I would lay on the couch, the kids would physically sit on top of me and watch cartoons, which, by the way, one person told me, that's great parenting, because if they get up, they wake you up, and then you're like you're keeping an eye on them while taking a nap. So I would take my first nap, then we would go downstairs, we'd have breakfast, we would resume the position, and then I would take my second nap. Of course, if we had other things to do, I could make it through. When I started taking this formula on a regular basis, I just, they were younger then, and we would get into the position to watch cartoons, and I'm like, I'm just not feeling like I'm going to sleep. So I'd actually get up and do stuff. So that's kind of my testimonial. It absolutely has a dramatic impact on my sleep.
Yeah, and I think for so many people, they use up a lot of their glutathione because we are exposed to so many different toxins, and people have really bad diets, and there's just a lot of cleanup the body has to do. We need assistance. We need supplements that are helping to clean up the mess, so to speak. That's going to be draining your energy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, so anything else? Any other things you want to tell us about the ESS60?
Yeah, well, I think, it's cutting edge, right? And we've got a lot more research to do. I want to share that we just published, this is about 3 months ago, with the original lead researcher of the original paper. So that original paper where the Wistar rats lived 90% longer than the control group. The lead researcher is Dr. Fathi Musa, and we just published with him. And I share that because, I'm extremely proud of it. A lot of supplement companies, and you're in the industry, so a lot of supplement companies don't go and do research, right? In fact, some of them, especially on a novel material like ours, are scared to do the research, because if the research comes up the way they don't want it to, then they don't have a product anymore. I'd rather find out if this were to come true. I don't think it will. That there is no effect, and move on with my life, and not end up, selling something that doesn't actually have value. So we're continuing to do the research that a lot of supplement companies don't do. And I think that's really important. I can also share, my director of research at one point was reading through that original paper. Again, it's out of the University of Paris. And he said, Chris, this could have been 5 separate papers. Like there's three key things that we can talk about inside of that paper. So the first one is the 90% extension of life. I mean, that's fantastic. The second is, and it's very dramatic, which is none of the test subjects died with tumors. So a typical Wistar rat lives about 32 months and has a known amount of tumor mass in its body. The longer it lives, the more tumor mass it gets. Even though the MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, right, 90% longer, none of them had any tumors. Now, when I share this, some people are like, oh, great, cure for cancer. I have a very specific response to that. No. And then I follow it with no, right? Cancer is a very tricky disease, and kind of managing a cancer that has metastasized is very different than being a cancer preventative, which is kind of what that indicates. And we know things as simple as a good diet, good sleep, good exercise are cancer preventatives. And so that piece of the study kind of throws the ESS60 molecule into that area, which needs more research. But it is very dramatic. The next thing that I think is really impactful, and there's kind of a corollary of its impact on us, is they injected the rats with carbon tetrachloride. Carbon tetrachloride is an oxidative agent that really attacks the liver. And so they're really looking at oxidative stress and the ability of, again, water, olive oil, and olive oil with ESS60 to manage that oxidative stress in the liver. The only rats that were able to recover from that, that insult, the insult of the oxidative agent, carbon tetrachloride, were the ESS60 rats, right? So you have protective effects on the liver. Now, interesting, one of our testimonials is people are able to go out at night, imbibe, and not feel how they think they should have felt that next morning. So I have to be really careful. It's interesting. A lot of people would not think that a hangover is an FDA issue, right? It's something you did to yourself. How is the FDA even involved in this? And then I'll say 2 words. You're like, oh, well, it is an FDA issue. And those 2 words are alcohol poisoning, right? And so now that's an FDA issue. So we have to be really careful when kind of talking about this. People just report improvements, assume that's not going to happen for you. But if you're looking at liver protection as a potential mechanism serum to support some of those testimonies, like that starts to make sense. So I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, that's great. And like, yeah, and a lot of binders like activated charcoal, I would take that, if I ever had a drink or just, some wine. I was traveling in Argentina and, didn't wanted to, go see the llamas the next day. So I took some activated charcoal and it definitely works. You don't have any problems the next day. And I imagine, C60s work in the same function. Like a lot of binders would.
Yeah, I think it is really, really similar, except I don't think you get, so those binders, I don't think you get liver protective effects, right? Because this was actually an injected insult as opposed to just something that I think the activated charcoal is capturing some of the alcohol, actually binding it in your stomach, right?
Yes.
So that you then just excrete it. And then kind of one last testimonial that I like to share, because it's a fascinating little story, because people ask, how quickly might I notice effect? And I'll tell this story because this is kind of the longer term and what might happen. Our largest distributor in Houston, her name is Gwen. I did a video with her, and she shared she originally purchased the product for her dog. So I always get confused if she has a Pekingese or a Shih Tzu. The breeds are really close, but she has one of those, and she had no intention of taking the product. But she noticed such a profound difference in her dog that she was like, I need to be taking this, right? And I like to pause there, because when you're talking about something new, a novel supplement, one of your concerns should be the placebo effect, right? It affects everything, whether you lean on it heavy or not, it affects everything, except there is no placebo effect with pets. Right. So when we get, and we have lots of pet testimonials, it feels very good because there is no placebo effect there. So she noticed this profound difference. She started taking it. I was shooting a video with her, and she said, Chris, if you had asked me about the 3-month mark, if I've noticed anything, my initial response would have been no, right? Like I haven't. But then I stopped and I took stock of my life. And I realized that I was working later. I was waking up earlier. I was never really a morning person. And then arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement ever, I cleaned my garage. we don't use that in any marketing material. But it also means something. And sometimes it's more complex than you might think. One is the energy to tackle the job, right? Like nobody likes to get in their garage and clean it. And the other can be like the emotional baggage that might be in the garage, like, of an ex or whatever, or a loved one who's passed. Like these are challenging things. So I really do think that means something. So that's kind of on the bigger end. We do get a number of people, it's probably in the 3 to 5% range, who are like, oh, I didn't really notice anything. And then they go off of our subscription. Like 55% of our customers are on subscription. And then they stop taking it, and it takes about 10 days, and they're like, oh, now I know what I miss, right? Like I feel what I'm missing, and then they get back on. So I that's kind of the extreme side of things. And then the quickest testimonial that we really have is a lady out of the UK took the product. She gave me the video that night, and she said in the video, I didn't finish my cup of coffee today. Right now, if you're a coffee drinker and you know that you always finish your cup of coffee, and you put that in a testimonial video, she's just, again, that focus and energy that comes from it. And it's not a jittery caffeine energy. It's it's kind of the energy you would expect if you improve the function of your mitochondria.
Yes,
And
clean, very clean.
right. So those are the kind of the two extremes of how quickly people might see a response.
Yeah, and I like that you have it in glass bottles, and you also have, because I would take it traveling with me, you have like these little squeeze pouches. I'm not
Yes.
sure the term of those exactly, but you have like individual doses, and yeah, they're great. And you can just throw those in, if I go away for a weekend, I have it with me. And I really like that method of delivery.
Yeah, it's exactly. So it's kind of like an ampule for those that are listening. Maybe you've seen a little tiny ampule of saline solution for contact lenses. It's like that. It's a bigger version of that. Has 1 teaspoon or 5 mils in it. That's the standard serving. And it's really good, like TSA compliant, right? Whereas this is kind of our bigger bottle. I think this is our 8-ounce bottle. That's going to get taken away from you. You don't want that taken away from you. Whereas these are super convenient. I leave some in my car and take them when we travel.
And you have a face serum too. Can you talk about the benefits for your skin?
Yeah. So the face serum, I don't know if I did a good job of kind of expressing that I never really wanted to be in the supplement market. I'll kind of briefly outline that. This study comes out in 2012, mid 2013. We start getting phone calls of people saying, "Hey, how much in a dose?" And we're like, I'm not sure you should take any, right? Because this, in our mind, like our conservative carbon nanomaterial scientist minds, this was for inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. Now, the study was out already, and the rats lived 90% longer than the control group. If anything is true, if they live twice as long, it's not toxic, right? So that really wasn't a concern. We're just super conservative. So from mid 2013, really to the latter part of 2017, my business partner and I would get together and like, what are we going to do with this? You know, we're getting 2 to 3 calls a week. We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling to be really conservative, which created this kind of awkward situation where people would call us and say, "Hey, my neck pain is gone." And we would go, "You mean the neck pain of your rat, right?" Because it literally says not for human consumption. And they're like, "Yeah, if I had a 270-pound rat, how much should I be giving that 270-pound rat?" So my business partner and I are getting together like once a quarter. What are we going to do with this? Do we really want to go down the path of supplements? And this is a challenged industry. I think that's a politically correct way to describe the industry. In fact, I found a peer-reviewed published article in that time frame that said the researchers purchased some supplements off the market, and 50% of the supplements that they purchased did not have in them what they said they had in them, right? And that's the framework. If you think about us as carbon nanomaterial scientists, I'm selling, our carbon industrial carbon 60 powder to these scientists. When they get it, they give it to a grad student or they give it to a research associate who's got the equipment to confirm that we sent them what we sold them, right? That's not what happens in the supplement space, right? Like people don't have a high performance liquid chromatography equipment in their garage, at least not many. And so we really stayed away from it until the latter part of 2017. A guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting taking it on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing twice a week to 10 times a day. And then my business partner like, okay, so we believe in its safety. We were already kind of playing around with it and consuming it ourselves. We really have two considerations. And we asked ourselves, like the two key questions are: first, a moral question. Am I comfortable selling it? So I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team here takes it. By the way, not a requirement to work here. If you don't want to take it, you're welcome to work here still. We have an amazing staff. So we check that box. And then the next is the FDA and the FTC. You've heard my disclaimers. You got to, cross the T's, dot the I's. And it was the early part of 2018 that we really started bringing it to market. Now, we have a business partner who was talking about when she would take the product, if there's any left on the rim, she would like take it. And it's not an inexpensive product. It's not crazy expensive, but it's not inexpensive. And she would rub it on her skin and she liked what was happening. And so she was like, "Chris, we need to make a face serum." And you can imagine, I was like, "Yay, that sounds amazing."
That's
We'll
what
make a
I've
face
always
serum.
dreamed of doing.
So we put the product together. I want to support her. It's good. It's a smart business move for sure. And then the testimonials that it started coming in were just kind of off the charts. And so I'm very happy that we did. It's a little face serum. I don't know if you've got this one. I probably sent you an ampule sample
Yeah, I got
of this one.
I got some samples. Yes.
People love it. My wife loves it. My wife actually owns a spa here in Houston, and she sells this out of her spa. She describes it. She sells it like water because everybody likes it. And then about the time that was coming out, my director of research came to me and said, "Hey, I found this molecule that has 30 years of research on skin and hair improvements. And this is peer-reviewed, published research." And I was like, and he's like, "You should go look at it." So I start digging into this. It's a peptide. And I'm like, this is pretty amazing. We should actually bring this to market, right? We're already in the face serum business now. So let's bring something that's also additionally powerful. And so we ended up with this 2-part skin reduo set. And it's 2 parts for a very specific reason. Peptides are typically water soluble. And of course, our ESS60 molecule is oil soluble. And I wanted to combine these. You can do that chemically with what's called an emulsifier. I don't even like how emulsifier sounds. And if you go Google it, there are no health benefits. There are only detractions of emulsifiers. And so we decided to keep it separately with our Youth 29. And the way it works is you do one, I don't even know if I have that much in here. Two squirts of the UTH 29 and then 2 drops per squirt of the activator. And you just activate it right in your hand. That's probably 1 extra drop. And then you just activate it right in your hand. And people love this. I can tell you kind of a funny story. I'll put it on the back, put it on my face. I'll do that later. So we have another one of our large distributors, and she called me early on, and she was talking about our oral product. And she goes, Chris, I have to tell you, I have a face serum and a face skin lotion obsession. I actually have a credit card my husband doesn't know about, so I can buy face serum and face lotions. And she said, this was the best thing she's ever put on her face. And so then we come out with this, and I'm like, hey, you got to get this. And then we came out with a 2-part, and we didn't even have the labels. Like bringing out a supplement, you've got the concept and the supplements kind of available without the labels, and you're working on all this stuff. And I sent her some. It's kind of interesting. 2 weeks in, she goes, yeah, I didn't really like it. I got a little bit of flaking. And then another week later, we had another conversation, and she goes, yeah, I went to the lady who does my facials, and she said, it looks like you had an ozone treatment, which apparently is a nice treatment for your skin and maybe even internally. And then she was sold, and she was like, so I want a wholesaler amount. And I was like, I guess I need to put the labels together. And so we finished the labels. And so she was the first one. And we're, again, getting amazing testimonials about that. I don't know if I sent that. If I didn't send the 2-part to you, I'm happy to do that.
No, I don't. I didn't know about it, but I do like the serum for sure. And it makes sense because, we have a lot of environmental toxins that get on our skin that are, the number one place you get toxins is in the air. And that falls on your skin, and you get, free radicals from, environmental, like the sun damage as well. And so you need to address that using products that fight free radicals and antioxidants.
Yeah. No, and so again, we never intended to be I wish that I could say I was some genius who went in a lab and created something that extended the life of test subjects by 90%, that made a great face serum. No, I'm just a guy who's been manufacturing this molecule since 1991. They thought it was toxic, and they put it in the study. It turned out to extend the life of the test subjects by 90%. And then we're just kind of trying to be a great shepherd to this research and this molecule.
So this episode is brought to you by Chef's Foundry. They've got a fantastic line of cookware called P600. It's totally non-toxic. I think people don't realize that when they're cooking, most people's cookware is adding toxins to their healthy food, that people spend so much money on healthy organic food and then cook it in toxic cookware. And so that includes cast iron, which I do not recommend. It adds way too much iron in a form that we can't absorb. People use aluminum cookware, which is very inexpensive, and it's used at most restaurants, giving us tons of aluminum. People are also using ceramic cookware, which can leach toxins into your food. And not to mention the nonstick cookware. It just has so many PFAS or PFAS that is so toxic. It's one of the forever chemicals. So you really have to pay attention to what you're cooking in. So that's why I recommend the P600 line by Chef's Foundry, so that you can have peace of mind when you're cooking and you're not getting any nasty chemicals like lead or cadmium or nickel or PFAS in your healthy food. You can get a special discount for my listeners by going to bit.ly/Myers Detox. So that's bit.ly/Myers Detox, MYERS DETOX, to get an exclusive discount just for my listeners. I want you to be thinking about what you're cooking your food in, and I highly recommend the P600 line by Chef's Foundry. And were you one of the first people to bring this to market? Were you the first one?
In terms of putting it in olive oil, we weren't. We actually ended up buying the company that was first. So we now are the first ones effectively, right? But in terms of the industrial C60. We are the oldest and longest manufacturer of C60 on the planet. Again, we've been manufacturing it since 1991. There was one company that was delivering commercial quantities before us, but they didn't even make it 9 months. And we're, here, I don't know, 33 years later, and we're still manufacturing and distributing the product. And then again, from the foundation, we provided the material. We're mentioned in the original study where the test subjects lived 90% longer than the control group. And yeah, so we're out here working to share this amazing technology. I get to have amazing conversations with people like you. Get to go to conference. We've been going to conferences. Our next conference is A4M, so I'm excited about that. I don't know if you've been or you're planning on
Yeah,
going.
no, I have been before. Yeah, I'm gonna be in a detox clinic in Switzerland when
Oh,
that
cool.
conference is going off. So,
That's very
so
cool.
I'm not messing around here. I'm gonna be in Switzerland detoxing for 2 weeks. So that's my little plan. But I
Where,
went to A4M last year. It was awesome. It was great.
where in Switzerland? My wife and I went this summer to Zurich for a little while.
Yeah, so I don't know the exact little town. It's a little tiny town. It's like 2 hours from Milan. So you have to
Hmm.
fly into Milan and then you do a 2 hour ride to get to the little it's a little tiny town.
That's
Um,
you're gonna love it. Like it's just
yeah.
gonna be an unbelievably beautiful setting, and then they're kind of going through detox. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm gonna go check it out because I'm thinking about running a retreat there maybe next summer and summer
Hmm.
2025. So I'm gonna go test it out first.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell the listeners if you have any like a discount code for anyone listening and where can they go to buy your product?
Yeah, so they can go to the website. We made a special website for your audience. It's MyVitalC, C as in carbon. So myvitalc.com/Wendy. When they go there, you can find our bottles. We've got 3 different oils. We've got olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. People are like, what should I try? We always recommend the olive oil, and that's for 2 reasons. The first reason is we're a science-backed organization, and all of the research is really the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. So that's the first thing. The second is you get a higher concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. So you get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and about 0.3 in MCT oil. So although I love to put our MCT oil, by the way, MCT is usually a clear liquid. It's really kind of cool chemistry that when you take this black powder and put it in MCT, it turns a beautiful purple color, right? So I put our purple MCT in our coffee. While that's mixing, I'll take about a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil, and then I'll typically put some avocado oil on our product. But if you're looking for one, it's going to be the olive oil. And then you've got a couple choices. You can do the olive oil in the glass bottle. You can do it in these kind of ampules. And then we also do have gel caps. The gel caps, in order to get a full teaspoon, they're not huge, but they're not tiny. And you got to take about 6 of them. So we would say take 3 in the morning, take 3 in the afternoon if you want gel caps. Also a great travel option.
I have a C60 salad dressing recipe that you can make also
Oh, awesome.
with the olive
Very cool.
oil, olive oil and rice vinegar. It's great on your
Very cool.
arugula.
So I love that. Like we probably need to steal it and then give a link back to you. No matter what product you're interested in, there's like a 25% discount for going on subscription. So even if you just want to try it once, go on subscription. Don't worry. Our team, our customer service team has like 850 5-star reviews on Google. So one, we're very dedicated to our customers. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. So go ahead and take advantage of that discount. And then there's a discount code, a special discount code on your landing page. So that's the myvitalc.com/Wendy. And that discount code that you'll find on that page will give your audience an additional 15% off of their initial order. I'm sorry, $15 off of.
$15. Yes, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone, so thanks so much, Chris, for coming on the Myers Detox podcast. And thanks everybody for listening. I went on your show and I really enjoyed talking to you and learning more about C60 because I'd always honestly been on the fence about it because there's not a ton of research out there. But I had a lot of peace of mind after talking to you and talking to you about the research that you've done and that clearly there's no toxic effects at all with the C60, no, beyond a shadow of a doubt. So I feel very confident in taking it, and I prefer taking this. It's just a fantastic binder, and there's a lot that you have the health benefits of the olive oil as well, and I think it tastes really good personally. So Chris, thanks for coming on the show. And again, at myvitalc.com/Wendy to go learn more about it and get a bottle for yourself, and the face serum too is on there, I assume. So Chris, thanks for coming on the show. I'm Dr. Wendy Myers. Thanks for tuning in every week to the Myers Detox podcast, where we bring you experts from around the world to talk about detoxification, how to prevent so many different health issues that toxins are shown to cause. And we also talk a lot about anti-aging, longevity, and bioenergetics, and a lot of more advanced topics in health. So thanks for tuning in. A lot more to come next week.
The Myers Detox podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.